Anyway, Larry Ahern, the 51st district, my district representative, your state representative, I'd like to invite him to come here and talk about what the legislature has done its past session and maybe some upcoming things, and take questions from him.
Yes.
Well, and thank you, Bob, for inviting me and encouraging me to come out and speak to your group. And excuse me, Chris Giannet, who I've known for a long time, and who I saw at the Capitol testifying in public forum. I don't remember the exact
Medicaid.
Medicaid. Okay. And that's what's important in your committee. We're testifying, that public testimony at committees. But you do have some new people here, so I'll introduce myself. My name is Larry Ahern, and I was recently elected in November to the State House of Representatives in this district, 51, which is Largo, south of Ulmerton, Seminole, Pinellas Park, and west this direction to South Pasadena at the southernmost tip. It's about 94,000. It'll probably expand a little bit, well, by about 40 or 50,000. When we redraw the lines, probably the beaches is what it looks like. So if you live on the beaches, you'll probably be in the district that I'll be running for next year. I'm a 33-year resident here out of the Air Force. I heard you just recently. Congratulations, and thank you all for your service. In 1978, I came to Florida, started a small business, and have done that my whole life. Was looking for a place to serve in our community for a few years. Thought it might be in the ministry, quite honestly. I looked at that for my church. In fact, that's how I ended up at the Capitol, Catholic Days at the Capitol in 2009. Met my representative. Disagreed on a lot of things and wasn't satisfied, and maybe went out there shaking my head, somewhat disgusted by what I saw, and hung around a few more days to go to committee meetings and see how the process worked. And when I came back to find out what the situation was, I saw that no one was at that time running against her, and decided that I actually announced it at a 9/12 meeting. I remember that it's just forming up. Glenn Beck, I think, is one of our prophets of this day and age, and I look, you just kind of, you get inspired by, that kind of a person and telling you to get involved and pay attention. And again, I commend you on your committee work. I had a swimming pool business that I sold. That I mentioned, my children were born and raised here. I found myself with an opportunity to challenge an incumbent Democrat. They said it couldn't be done, but as you know, the Lord works in mysterious ways, and here I am, the representative of this district, and we're here to serve, and that's part of the staff that you pay for, quite honestly, and you pay my salary. Kimberly is my district secretary, and Bill is my legislator. Make sure that you get some cards, because our office is here to serve you. That's what we do. If you have a problem at the state level, or even if it's something locally that you're finding somewhat of a challenge, if we can help, that's what we do. We seek to serve and to be part of this community, and understanding that there will be some challenges to some of the laws that may be a snafu that you get caught in, and we'd like to help you solve. The reason I ran, or one of the reasons I ran, was because I also saw that Florida and our country was not as in good a shape that I felt it could be, and I thought that the business practices and principles that I worked in my whole life could be applied to government. That there wasn't that type of maybe common sense thinking in a lot of ways, and how our money was being spent. I was, again, I came away shaking my head, wondering if it could be applied. I saw another businessman get in the race and become our governor, and realize that we are on the right track. We are on the right course to be who we said we are: fiscally conservative, personal responsibility in our own lives and to our families. My vision for Florida is to make Florida the best state in the country. And my job, as I see it, is to make the decisions based on whether or not, and this is legislation, it enhances the quality of life for every citizen in my district and in the state. How do I do that? What is my measure? And kind of like to share maybe my goal with you. And it's the platform that I ran on, and it was called Accountability in Government. You know, asking some of the tough questions. What does this agency do? They don't necessarily like to answer that question. How do they do it? And at what cost to you and me? Is the real clincher. You know, how are they delivering that product or service that we've asked them to produce? And on what principles do they you know, is there a business practice or principle that we could apply to that? We did what we were elected to do. Our only constitutional duty is to balance the budget, and we did. Facing a $3 billion plus shortfall, we did it without raising your taxes. What was the Democrats' policy solution to this problem? The people we call in the back row, because they're in the minority party at the state level, they decided they would not participate in the budget process. That they weren't going to even lift a finger.
At least they didn't leave the state, though.
Yeah. They didn't. They did.
Yeah.
They did vote against the budget, of course, against education, against police, against fire, against maintaining our roads, our bridges, and our highways, against the elderly and the poor. And I just say shame on them. I mean, I don't know how they go home to their districts and claim any kind of a representation of their section of Florida, their district, with that kind of a resume. So we have begun the process of reforming government. There is no more status quo, or at least that's what we're attempting to do. I mean, the St. Pete Times called it a train wreck. I'm sure you read all about it, how horrible the session was, this and that. The more horrible they claimed it was, the better you know we did. That's basically how you have to interpret it. We reformed education through the Student Success Act. We gave parents more choice with the expansion of the charter schools, contrary to what's been written about how we cut education spending. We simply went back to the pre-stimulus levels in most cases. Florida has taken over $11.5 billion in stimulus money, and the school districts knew the reductions were coming. Some prior planned, like Hillsborough County, and they didn't suffer at all under the new rollbacks. And some didn't, like Pinellas. And now they're struggling. I'm sure Bob is seeing it at the school board level. I tuned into one of their meetings. It's amazing. I don't know how you sit through it. They went back and forth for about 20 or 30 minutes up against the time constraint, trying to decide when to hold the next meeting. They had to recess, I think, ultimately, and they came back and had decided. I mean, these are the decision makers in our school board. It was incredible. It's like watching, I guess, paint dry. It's amazing. Again, what was the Democrats' solution to education? Don't change anything. Status quo. Medicaid. We sought to protect the program by moving most of the state's Medicaid population to a comprehensive managed care system in order to save money, knowing that we have 3 million currently enrolled in the program and expecting an additional 1.5 million in the next 3 years. We had to make a change, and we have to have a plan. What was the Democrats' solution? Don't change anything. We reformed property insurance, which limited sinkhole coverage and increased capital requirements for insurers to raise rates to cover reinsurance costs and to put limits on the time to file claims for damage by hurricanes or windstorms from 5 years down to 3 years. Also, if you make a sinkhole claim, you had to use the money to fix the problem. That was the problem with sinkholes. If you had a crack in your foundation, a public adjuster came by, said, you got a crack, you must have a sinkhole, do geology studies and all these things, smoke and mirrors, get a settlement from the insurance company and not fix the so-called sinkhole. And they were losing losing money on it, causing ultimately an increase in the rates for sinkhole coverage. What was the Democrat solution again? Don't change anything. Unemployment compensation. We cut the state unemployment benefit from the current 26 weeks down to 23 weeks in order to save our small businesses money, and implemented a sliding scale downward as unemployment decreases in our state. When we get down to 5% unemployment, you'll only receive from the state benefit 10 weeks of unemployment. Now the federal level will continue to provide whatever their number is. I guess it's 99 weeks, or at this point in time, I mean, I don't know how long who would just stay on unemployment? I mean, again, encouraging unemployment. Of course, we fought that tooth and nail, the debate on that, hot and heavy. You can't cut unemployment, you're hurting the unemployed, you're picking on the unemployed. What was the Democrat solution? Don't change anything. We reformed the public pension plan and made an adjustment to the state employee benefit in order to avoid potential layoffs and pay cuts that ultimately would have hurt them. We required them to contribute 3% of their salaries toward their retirement. We did this to prevent any shortfalls that a downturn in the market conditions might cause, and because it just wasn't sustainable. Everyone knows the pension plan was not sustainable. And we took a lot of heat in the committees about this 3%. It was up to 5, the governor wanted 5, the Senate wanted 2. We compromised a bit and got the 3, but I can remember being booed in that government operations committee by the police and the firefighters and the unions about our decision to do this 3%. But again, we took the heat, we got it done, and the Democrat solution was, of course, don't do anything. We took the drop program out in that same committee, and man, we took some heat for that. That was a tough fight. I thought we were rid of it. That is the most double-dipping program I've ever seen. We don't need it anymore. It was to keep teachers in longer because we had a teacher shortage when the program was implemented back in I think, late 80s, early 90s. We don't need the program. We did, however, at least cut the interest rate that they collect while they're in the program, although you probably saw today's paper where everyone will be entering that program that qualifies because they get the 6.5% rate while they're accruing their retirement benefit and grab that lump sum at the end. We did reduce that to 1.3% after July 1st, so we'll start to save at that point, or going forward at least. Again, we made a plan to protect and to ultimately save Florida money. We're proactive instead of being reactive because we knew what was coming. The Democrat solution, of course, is to not change anything. We implemented some tougher laws regarding the pill mills and their ability to dispense the large quantities of oxycodone and other prescription drugs. In fact, the governor will be in Tampa tomorrow to sign that bill. One of the 4 or 5 places he'll be going around to sign that particular bill, so you might catch it on Bay News 9. But that had for Pinellas County, Hillsborough County was the other hot spot. We have been plagued by the pill mill epidemic, crimes. And
I have a question on that one. I didn't read the law, but does the law that should be shutting down the pill mills, does it make it more difficult for legitimate doctors to issue pain relievers to patients?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, so it leaves the legitimate doctors alone.
It really does. I mean, it seeks to constrain and limit the amount that they can prescribe, but ultimately we have to pay the piper on that.
Well, wasn't one of the big issues with that is the doctors can no longer dispense out of their office. You must go to a pharmacy to fill your prescription now.
Try to force that in pharmacies.
Weren't they also writing prescriptions to multiple pharmacies? Wasn't that part of the problem?
Well, yeah, and again, that was part of the problem. I had the fraud and prescription drug ban, the PANs, and there is an implementation of that drug monitoring program that is still part of that, which again, all these things are designed to limit the impact on Florida, which in our criminal system, our justice system. They say the costs are upwards of $43 billion. It's just staggering, the amount of people that are in the system because of an addiction to the prescription pain medications. We reformed the state's election process in order to ensure a more transparent, more accountable method and to protect the voting rights of our citizens by reducing fraud and attempted abuses. Provisional balloting, registering people the day of the election is what has been taking place. People voting in other counties, being bused across county lines, we found out, to put a provisional balloting saying, oh, I think we're going to move here. We can't do that anymore. And of course, the St. Pete Times headlines, they just made it harder for you to vote. Folks, it won't be any harder for you or I to go to that. We go to the same place we always go to, and we get to vote. In fact, we did make it, now you don't just vote like we used to one day. We used to have 2 weeks. Now we've cut it down to 1 week again to save some money. We knew that the election supervisors sent us the message, look, there's no, we don't need the extra week. We're holding all these places open for the hours that we said we would, and it's just too much. There's not enough people to come in and vote, let alone the week that we would have. So again, this bill in no way, shape, or form makes it harder for a legitimate voter to cast their ballot. And again, what was the Democrat solution? That's right. Don't do it.
What is the new limitation for registration to vote?
It's the
Is
same
it
as
like
ours was.
60 days before an election? Or?
It's 29 or 30. Yeah, there was that. Yeah. That'll still be the same.
Oh,
None of the
still
laws really, in that regard, were changing in terms of registration, except for maybe who can. We had third-party registrants. Using a long period of time, and we did cut that down. Chris?
While we're on the voting topic, what would be the appetite of Tallahassee to make English the official language of Florida? Pinellas County's Hispanic census rose, and that's going to incur a cost on our upcoming elections that we must have bilingual ballots and we must have bilingual poll workers.
Well,
That's
I
going to
would-
be a state mandate, an unfunded state mandate.
So they speak Mandarin and English?
Can't they handle that by county? I mean, not every county is that.
I haven't seen that legislation yet, but English should be the only language on the ballot. as far as I'm
Would you
concerned. We don't
champion,
need.
would you sponsor a bill to make English the official language of Florida?
I would certainly look into it.
Awesome,
I would.
awesome.
It just. I
And
mean,
that's purely from a cost
Yeah.
point of view.
Well, and not only that, but this is America, and that is the official language. I'm always amazed at how we seek to accommodate, so many immigrants, whatever it might be, when ultimately you have to be a good citizen, you need to know, you need to be able to communicate in the language of the country, and that's English. In fact, I don't know, Bob probably may or may not know it because I did a little research on the public school system, and the public school system was actually created for the children of the immigrants to learn the language and the culture and to take that home and teach their parents. That was the ultimate goal or the reason that the public school system was actually created. And I was amazed to find that out. It makes good common sense. Again, here's this good common sense thing that says, look, we need to teach the kids English. We don't need teachers to speak in Spanish or to speak in Chinese or Vietnamese, whatever the situation is.
Unless it's Spanish class.
Right. Well, of course.
Well, I was
And it's
dismayed
elective.
to see in the census last year that apparently there is a percentage threshold that Pinellas County crossed with, in consideration of Hispanic population, that these kind of unfunded mandates now are coming to the county level. Just the printing of the ballots alone is going to cost, I believe, don't quote me on this, an extra $300,000
And you do cost benefit analysis on
for
that.
those ballots to be bilingual.
What would
And
your
I'm
Spanish
sure
name be on
if-
the ballot?
I have no idea.
And I'm sure if the county has to hire bilingual poll workers, those poll workers are gonna require an additional salary versus the single lingual poll workers. It's just, it's just stupid to me to incur that kind of cost, when it could be easily just, English is the language of legal contracts, it's the language of our laws. It just makes sense that someone in Tallahassee would say, look, to save all of our counties money, we're gonna make English Florida's official language.
We need to look at
I'll look
everything.
into that. I
and
wrote a
see
note. I'll talk to
everything's on the
the
table.
representative. Baxley was the one that did the elections bill, so I'm sure I'll give him a call and find out.
Mr. Ahern, would you prefer to wait till you're done, or do you want to field questions as you bring up each topic?
Let me finish if you would,
Okay.
and then we can just go back. It'll be easy. Because I may answer your question somewhere in there, I don't know, but growth management was another one that you probably recently read a lot about. We reduced the state review of the local government's comprehensive plans, and this saves money by eliminating the cost of submitting that comprehensive growth plan, even if nothing has changed, and especially now, where the only changes that are made is, there's little or no growth, and in fact, in reverse in a lot of ways. The municipalities will be held responsible for following the rules, enforcing the regulations that we have in the code. And again, it doesn't, we didn't remove any regulations or codes. We simply put the onus on your local municipalities, relieving them of the state oversight. Although I expect there will be some sort of spot inspections to make sure if there's problems in any counties, to make sure that no one is overstepping their boundaries or not complying with the regulations. The debate was centered on how this was going to ruin the state's ecosystem, destroy wildlife, and set the state back 50 years. Somehow I find that hard to believe, but that's where it was. I even read in the paper, a column, our paper of record, by the way, that the city managers and planners were referred to as Festus and Jim Bob, if you can believe that, implying their incompetence. Now, we're in Seminole, which is, I don't know, that'd be Frank Edmonds would be the city manager here, and Mark Ely that would be the city planner. I can't think of who the Pinellas Park is. I mean, I've met most of these people. They're highly regarded professionals, and I don't think they're going to build a skyscraper in the middle of Seminole. Again, they're in the hands of people who have to come under the oversight of your city council, your mayor. So the Festus Jim Bob thing doesn't hold much water. But anyway, what was the democratic solution to the oversight problem? Don't do anything. Government reorganization, we created a Department of Economic Opportunity and transferred several of the other things, tourism, trade, economic development, and portions of other agencies that we wanted to hang on to into this new department, again, saving on staff, the size and scope of government, trying to reduce where we could those costs, taking a first step that again, is why most of us ran, to try to reduce our cost of running the government. On the jobs front, we created the economic development, some economic development by, again, not creating jobs, because that's not what government does, but investment tax credits that may be carried forward for use against corporate income tax. We also set a certain requirement for procedures for energy economic zones. Further, we exempted the first $25,000 in profits from the 5.5% corporate income tax. That amounts to probably about $1,100 in corporate income tax when you exempt the first 25,000. It's not a big number, but again, it shows a willingness to corporations that Florida's on the move. The governor would like to remove this 5.5% completely. I think we're going to try and do it 1% a year or something to that effect, or 1.25%, 1.5% a year, because we have the highest corporate tax rate of any country. We're at 41%, I believe it is the last time I checked. So it's a, you know, it drives business out of our country and out of our state that we would have this higher rate. On immigration, we passed a bill in the House, it was really an Arizona-style law enforcement type bill that then died in the Senate after it was altered a number of times. And that was again, big battle. I mean, they lined the halls, they were praying in the chambers of the Senate or around outside. I mean, they flooded the Capitol with immigrants. And we're able to get the senators to cave on it. So we look for that to be back next year, and we'll be hopefully stronger. It's sort of like what happened with SB 6 last year when the governor vetoed it, the former governor vetoed it, and we passed it this year, 736, the son of SB 6 in the Student Success Act. Teacher merit pay, you know, holding people accountable for their production in government work. I co-sponsored and will be voting on 2 constitutional amendments in 2012. One that will counter Obamacare by prohibiting any law requiring the purchase of health care coverage. That was Scott Plaken's bill, and he called me, he said, Larry, I'm going to file this HJR1, it's the first bill, and he knew I was passionate about it, and I was the first co-sponsor on that bill. The other will affirm our Second Amendment rights that ban doctors from asking patients whether they own guns. These are just a few of the things that I believe have distinguished the leadership and determination of the Republican Party and the representatives that you elected last year. With the loss of 1/3 of our equity and property values in the state, we have made plans to move Florida closer to a fiscal soundness and at the same time build a platform for rebuilding a sustainable and diversified economy. What was the Democrats' solution? Do nothing. So anyway, I'd like to take some questions, and I just had a few closing remarks after I take a few questions. I know I put you off, so
I've got a bunch of it, I can deal with it afterwards, after we're done.
Okay.
Back to the voting question, I know you were talking about registration and the timing on that. Is there a push in the Senate and the House to make sure that in 2012 they mail the ballot to the military in time for them to vote?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that was part of the, there was a reference to it in the elections bill that would, you know, we want to definitely be sure that nothing affected those serving our country's ability to make that vote.
I'll talk to you later about
Okay.
which one.
Dan had a
Well,
question.
you keep mentioning that the Democrats' plan were to do nothing, and I was under the assumption that there's very few Democrats up there, and the ones that aren't they somewhat irrelevant?
Well, they are when they decide not to participate as a matter of policy in their only constitutionally delegated duty, and that's to balance the budget. They offered no alternatives. They would offer some amendments, and in committees mostly just complain about, you know, what.
But isn't there only like a half a dozen or so left?
Oh no, there's 39.
Oh,
It's 81 and 39.
we'll
That's
have
where
to
we're at.
reduce that.
Well, I mean, it would be difficult to maintain, because again, it'll be a swing year and you'll be up against the presidential ticket. And so it'll be difficult, but I plan to address some of that in my closing remarks because it's going to be important. Glenn has a quick question.
Yeah, so Representative Ahern, I was a bit troubled, and please understand that, I receive all men, all women, with the love of Christ, and I don't hold anything against any person because he or she is on the outside. But the thing that troubles me that people who, even in the St. Petersburg Times, well, they use the word undocumented, I use illegal alien because I don't like to use the politically correct terminology. But there were people who actually identified in some St. Petersburg Times articles who were so-called undocumented illegal aliens, and here they are, they're, up before our Senate, and trying to persuade them, like you were talking about earlier, to abort or to scuttle the bill that you had, the House had put forward. So I'm wondering, did in fact the illegal alien factor, did that impact our Senate, state Senate's decision? In other words, their voices overrode ours, the citizens of this state?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. One was make
You could make a case for that, but ultimately it did. The other factors that came to bear on that were agriculture is a big, we're a huge agricultural state, and a lot of workers come in. Probably about 50% of the immigrants that come to pick the crops, the jobs that, quite honestly, we don't want to do. Americans have decided that's no longer something they would do. So that's a big force in deciding how do we still, and they come in on green cards. They're supposed to go back. They don't always go back, and that's part of how do we fix that problem. And we addressed it in the bill that the employers would be responsible for making sure that the workers went back to wherever they came from, South America, Mexico. But again, the pressures in agriculture were strong. The Chamber of Commerce came out against it. So there were some other forces at play there. I think it somewhat was overshadowed by the amount of immigrants that they did. They came in buses up there to talk about, and they compromised most all the time that was spoke. There was no, quite honestly, I didn't hear anyone stand for for the law that says we have a problem. It's a federal offense to be in the state illegally. And there was no argument for it. They pretty much control all the public testimony in that regard. And so again, that's part of what we need you to come up to the Capitol for. You need to be there. You need to find out when those meetings are, and bring a couple of people with you so that there's a show that says, look, no, we're here to talk about the law and how we feel in our state that we want it to be handled, and they'll hear it. They'll hear it. But let me try to get somebody who has an answer.
This is a question as a elected member of your party. I hear all the time the Republicans talking about getting rid of Obamacare, but shouldn't we also in equal voice be talking about a solution to the health care problem? We all know there is a problem. Rather than just the negative part of getting rid of one, why don't we offer a vision for what we're talking about as an alternative so that people that can make considerable choice. Right now, it's just get rid of it and go back and have the same problem we had instead of, the solution.
Right. Well, and of course, that's going to be debated in this next election, the reform of our Medicaid system and Medicaid here in Florida, Medicare at the federal level. I'll be honest with you, I see programs, duplicative efforts in Pinellas County especially. I don't think anyone goes without care. The county has we fund a county program that doesn't turn anyone away. That you can get vaccinations, you can get all the things that you need.
Medical van to the homeless.
Certain
Yeah,
hospitals.
Unreal.
if you talk to the sheriff, part of his biggest problem is providing health care to prisoners. I mean, it's amazing the cost that we already incur and take care of those that really need that can't pay for their own health care. So, I mean, yes, the answer to your question is we do have to decide what the solution is, but we need to take a look at first all the agencies that do all these things already and decide, is it really as big a problem as we think it is? What's the number? They say 40 million, we say 8 million that go without coverage. So, I mean, we have to really find someone who can nail down the numbers and
We should be having a voice in that, because otherwise we're just having a negative voice. And I'm not sure we're convincing enough of the undecided population that what we say isn't just a negative bomb throwing, as opposed to, well, what's your alternative? Yeah, we talk about Democrats, what's your alternative? Well, we're not talking loud. I know there's been some talk about solutions like cross-country,
the shopping.
shopping for that, the legal system, trying to solve some of that. I mean, there are solution stuff that's out there, but they're not speaking it with a real heavy voice, with a loud voice.
Senator Ahern. Senator Tom Coburn did file a 250-page bill that addressed the health care issue, considerably shorter than the other one proposed by our friends from the other side of the aisle. But that is in the works. I interviewed one of his aides a while back for Moody Radio, one of our features, and he talked in great detail about what Senator Coburn's plan was, and basically a lot of it involves some of the things that you alluded to, but there was a federal proposal. Myself personally, though, Representative Ahern, wouldn't we be better served if we tried to solve this problem at a state level as opposed to kicking it up to the United States Senate, United States House of Representatives? I feel much more comfortable if you were handling it.
Yes, absolutely. To give us the money in the form of a block grant or something along those lines, and we'd be much better equipped to solve the problem than the federal government.
Sir, what about the illegal alien inmate who is going to be on our presidential ballot? I mean, Alabama's taking steps that already passed the law, making it a requirement that anyone on their ballot for president has to prove he's a legitimate U.S. citizen. Now, I'm not a birther, but I've seen a lot of stuff on the internet saying that this guy's documentation is not legitimate.
It's not a state issue, sir. That's
How is that not a state issue?
well.
If you require the state to make sure that is their citizens.
If before the state certifies the vote in the state in the presidential election, who the winner is, cannot the state require the candidates to prove citizenship?
Before they
Before they
put them on the ballot.
to get on the
Yeah,
ballot.
I think it has to be done, I would say it has to be done before.
Exactly.
Okay, do it
But
before.
again, we're,
Well, this goes
I don't
back
have that
to,
yet. I mean,
this goes back to letting the illegal aliens up in Tallahassee to dictate what our country is doing instead of the American citizens. I mean, that is crazy that they have more voice with Tallahassee than the citizens. I mean,
I believe it was Arizona
they should
actually
be
did
proving their
pass
citizens before they
what
can
he's
approach
saying,
the
and the governor
Tallahassee.
vetoed it. It's the Arizona State Legislature passed that they would have to prove citizenship. The governor turned around in Arizona and vetoed it, and so it didn't become an issue.
Oh, okay.
But they actually did that in Arizona. They said, you're going to have to prove it.
Alabama passed it.
Alabama did that.
Did it? Okay, so there's one. But the issue is it's never been an issue before, so it hadn't had to come up.
Right.
It's an issue now, so let's take care of it for the future. Let's not just make it all about this next election and this president. Let's take care
I'll
of
be
it.
honest with you, I mean, these things are good for us to talk about, but a lot of times they're just going to be distractions as we go to this election. It's not where we want to make our stand, quite honestly.
Right.
There's too many other things at stake, and ultimately, it's going to be more important than challenging that and that becoming a big issue than it will be to get some good, some more candidates for your local. I mean, you've got to fight it at the local level. These committees are terrific, and you've got to get some people committed people to run against the status quo, and you know what I'm talking about. Unless we maintain our seats at the state level and start to take a big jump at the local level, because they're working it and they're working hard. I already see the fresh Obama Biden stickers on the back of bumpers. It's happening. And what do we do? I mean, that's our problem. We are not getting organized like they are to raise money. He's already in the state raising money, and to get volunteers and to get people mobilized. Because I mean, they're just better organized because of the unions and some other things. But let's not just get distracted by some of those issues when we really just have to look at where are they vulnerable in the seats that they hold right now, and what can we do to win those seats so that no matter what happens at the presidential level, we can fight it off either at the state level or in the Senate or the Congress. That's what's so much more important. And,
I still have my question out quick.
okay.
And it still goes along the same line. I've had to go through the federal and the local courts, and every time you go inside the building, I have to show my ID, my picture ID, which has a little gold star on it, says that I've showed my birth certificate, I'm a U.S. citizen. I have to prove that I'm not carrying a weapon, and then I'm allowed to go in. Are you telling me in Tallahassee they're not required to do that? That you
I'm not
allow
sure how they all got
illegal
it.
aliens
Yeah, that's a good question.
inside the building?
I just saw them show up one day, so.
I'm just saying it sounded like an ICE opportunity.
Okay. Now, they probably, I would say that the people that came were not illegal aliens. I would
They
say
were just Hispanic
they were-
citizens.
Yeah, because they all had the same, they gave them all the same shirts, and the people
Oh,
that
you
did
didn't wear
speak
that too.
were pretty
They're
well.
just very fluent in Spanish.
There was a question over
Yes.
here.
Was it?
There was something that went through and got signed recently in the education bill, and it took the decisions on the textbooks out of.
Senate Bill 2120.
I'm sorry?
Senate Bill 2120.
Okay, removed the citizen from completely from the picking of textbooks for the schools. And I don't see where that's a good idea.
No, I did not serve on that. That's the K through 12
Yeah.
committee. I didn't serve on that, but I was curious about that as well. And I haven't had a chance to really look at it completely.
Well, it's already been
We
signed.
signed that pretty quickly.
Right. I was thinking that it probably has something to do, and I'm not sure if Texas does it that way. I was thinking, I'd heard this before, and I think Texas was the one that started to decide that they didn't want that in the hands of the school boards and some of the, a lot of the people that were selected to, what ultimately ends up with, who deciding what amount of, let's say, American history you're going to teach. They keep shortening up what wars we won and how much in depth we're going to go into the Holocaust has been
That's why I'm concerned about
put out
that,
in a lot of
because
the.
they've taken the average citizen out of that process now. There's no,
It's appointees on that committee.
Right,
yeah,
yes.
it's all experts that are doing this now, and I don't trust that.
It'd be interesting to find out why Governor Scott signed that, since he did it very quickly. By the time the bill information or the pending bill was sent out or disseminated to the Tea Party groups, he'd already signed the thing.
Right. Well, and again, I didn't see that one quite coming, to be honest with you, because that book has the bills that, and the disposition of all the bills ultimately for the last session, and while I sit on about 7 committees altogether, the one I do sit on is the higher ed appropriation, the colleges, the universities, and in appropriations, not policy. So I didn't really have any particular say, and it was probably, I'm sure it was in the big education bill. So I'll make sure you get one of my cards and give me your name and number, and I'll be glad to try to get you a little more
Well, there
information.
really isn't any more information on it as far as what can be done
Well-
right now, except that could be reversed, or at least have a person who is a common citizen on that committee, or a number of them, to give input from the general public as opposed to just some panel of experts.
Well, I'd like to find out who that panel of experts is,
Who
what
appoints
their
them?
qualifications are.
Who appoints them?
The governor.
Then he can appoint regular people to.
Yeah, yeah, you can.
Yeah, but
We're gonna take one last
Okay.
question, Representative Ahern, and we'll take it from Kathy.
Okay, yeah.
I think if I'm not mistaken, that citizen participation in that was slid into the budget bill and not, it actually wasn't passed in a school.
Okay, yeah. And see.
But when those things come up, I know that you all read the bills.
Yes.
When you see that slid in there, how come nobody brings it up?
Well, what happens is, in the conforming bills, that's when the things get slid in, and those are typically done in the conference committees, where they take those big bills and go over, the Senate meets the chairs from the Senate, meet the chairs from the different committees that the like bills are in, and then they talk about what ultimately is going to be the final bill. Do we take up the House bill or do we take up the Senate bill? And that's kind of what caused the stir at the end when the deregulation bill had not been vetted in the Senate. There was no companion bill for it, and so when they decided they wouldn't pass that, it kind of blew up. So again, there can be these little slip-ins, so to speak, that happen without anyone being able to really detect it. Or it's in the bill, when it comes back over, you have 48 hours to read all the ones that were vetted and decided on that day before it goes to the final vote. So, and unfortunately, there's always a lot of good stuff in with some from occasionally bad stuff. Now the governor is the one that can take that and veto those line by line. He sees that went in that we didn't know were going in a lot of cases until that last minute, last hour sort of a thing.
Well, sir, if I might interject, if you ever need help reading those big bills, there's just not enough time, we'd be more than happy to help you.
Oh.
you got some volunteers, but.
Okay, if I could I'll just make really quick closing remarks, because ultimately we're in this fight together, I believe, and it's a fight for our freedom. I mean, I think we're both, I think everyone understands we are on that doorstep. So, it begs the question, and I know most of you have participated in a campaign, but I would ask you to really consider this is the year to get a friend and someone, whoever might be a family member involved, and just try to put 2 or 4 hours a week in someone's campaign, making the phone calls, knocking on doors. I can't tell you how valuable that is and how many people you connect with and find in your community that get it like you do. I mean, we usually go to Republicans and independents. When we knock on doors, we have a selected list because we typically are not trying to convince someone who ideologically is probably at odds with us, but it's a great experience and it's well worth your time and effort. And again, our freedom is at stake. Whether I don't know if you believe that like I do, and my wife, I think a lot of you know my wife Maureen is very passionate about the situation that we're in, and has been tireless in my campaign and up at the Capitol, going to the committees, testifying. I didn't mention that we passed 5 out of the 6 pro-life bills that did pass in this session. We're waiting for the governor to sign them, and she was typically the only. Thank you. The only spouse that actually gave public testimony and said, Planned Parenthood does not speak for me as a woman. I declare my womanhood and my right to life and the life of my child.
Says Tim Tebow.
Exactly. So, and again, these campaigns, we don't get the free ink that the St. Pete Times gives and all the other little newspapers in Florida give to the Democratic Party. They basically get free ink. We have to raise money. That's the only way we can get our message out on TV, on radio, through flyers and postcards. So when you hear that freedom isn't free, that's what we're talking about in a lot of ways. you have to find a way to give $10 or $20 a month if you can to a candidate. It doesn't matter who it is, just someone you know that believes what you believe. Pinellas County will be a battleground for 2012. Again, the liberal media will be flooding us. We lost the 2010 or 2008 election to the Democrats in Pinellas County, and we need to reverse that. 10 was close.
10 was real close.
It's going to be critical to get our message out, and again, that this is the message I hope that I've given you here tonight, that there is, we are going the right direction, and that our state will be, I believe, will lead the way back to prosperity when we get it, if we just keep, in the direction that we're headed under the leadership of this governor and this legislator and this Senate. So again, I thank you all for.
Thank you for coming, Eric.